So the title of this year, there's three papers here.
I did a third for notes.
Okay. Title of this year is actually L'Shem Shamayim, and B'chol D'rechecha Da'eyu, which results in Simcha, as we'll see in the letters of the Rebbe. So the second paper is the handout, and the first paper is letters of the Rebbe that express the consequence of, I call it a Simcha mindset. Simcha is really a consequence of a mindset. The Chol D'rechecha Da'eyu leads to Simcha, as we'll see how the Rebbe says that in letters. But in order to get that, let's first start a discussion. What does it mean B'chol D'rechecha Da'eyu? What does it mean Kol Ma'asecha Yu L'Shem Shamayim? So there's three questions that we'll start off with. Three questions on the general topic of B'chol D'rechecha and Kol Ma'asecha. These questions, well, I'll just give you an outline. These questions will lead us into a discussion on the Yisoid of Hashgacha Pratis of the Baal Shem Tov, and also the Yisoid of Simcha, and the Rebbe is Mekasher the two together. So let's start off with a few questions. First question. It's brought down, Kol Ma'asecha Yu L'Shem Shamayim, two psukim, Kol Ma'asecha Yu L'Shem Shamayim, and B'chol D'rechecha Da'eyu. So the first question we need to really understand is, what does it mean L'Shem Shamayim? It's a word used often. When you bake matzah, you say L'Shem Matzah's mitzvah. That's not L'Shem Shamayim. That's not. It's the L'Shem Shamayim in a elementary level, in the sense of what you need for matzah. But you don't need chassidus to say L'Shem Shamayim. You need chassidus to think L'Shem Shamayim. L'Shem Shamayim is supposed to be a thought pattern, as we'll see. So the first question is, what does it mean L'Shem Shamayim in the sense of, it seems that L'Shem Shamayim is saying you are for something else. So does that mean I'm not a something? In English, we say serve Hashem. The word serve usually means you're bending one person for another person. Bending is the opposite of tainug. Tainug is an expression of a person. Bending, serving, seems like I'm for something else. So it's not about me feeling, it's about doing for the other person. So the L'Shem Shamayim many times seems to imply, so nishlakin zich, there's no me. And that's a scary thought, and subconsciously it scares a lot of people from even trying to engage in the subject, because where am I? In simple words, the skafia seems to be anti-self. And does the Eibishter want an anti-self? Is that really what it means? So the first question is, what does it mean L'Shem Shamayim? The second question is the difference between L'Shem Shamayim and B'chol D'rechecha. There's obviously a difference. And then the third question is, how does it apply in Achila? There's a lot of discussion in Chassidus all over how this is somehow plays out in the food experience. How can we understand this? How can we actually relate to this? What does this really mean? And food is just a word for enjoyment. It means food, drink, and everything else in life. It doesn't necessarily mean food as in food. There are many different kinds of enjoyment. It's just a word used because that's the most common, or often, but it's a general word. So what does it really mean? So in order to start this, let's start off with the Akdama. Chassidus explains that the word kadosh, the word holy, really has a major misconception. Most people feel that what's holy, and even in English, the word holy, when you say to someone they're holy, you mean to say they're not me. Anytime we come across a holy moment, we're essentially saying that's not my kind of thing. It's special moments. It's not my ordinary day. It's anything special. Special is another way of saying different. Special is another way of saying not ordinary, not normal. So when you say the word kadosh, as in muvdol, as in separated, we're essentially saying that's not a normal thing. And that's a big problem. Because if it's not normal, then I am one thing. Thank you. If it's, no, this is good. If it's not, if it's not normal, then I'm essentially saying I'm one thing. I have my lifestyle. And then special moments I pay tribute. I pay lip service. I'm going to give him his dues. Pay him his dues. We say in English, pay him his dues. That comes from a mindset. There's Kadosh. And there's me. There's a separation between anything holy and me. And Chassidus comes to attack this. All the areas, the main Yesodus of Chassidus, whether it's B'chol Derechacha, whether it's Hashgacha Pratis, all of them come and attack this root. And let's see how it plays out. So we talked in the past few classes about Hashgacha Pratis. It's important to summarize it a little bit because it leads to B'chol Derechacha. Hashgacha Pratis leads to B'chol Derechacha, and Hashgacha Pratis also attacks the same root. Let's see how it plays out. So we gave an example of a father who has a company. If you recall the example, a wealthy father who's inheriting the company to his son, and in order to give over the company to his son, he has the son go through the process of training into the mindset of how to think like an owner. The son was born into a company. Being born into a company doesn't necessarily mean you think like an owner. You actually think like a spoiled son. So you don't necessarily have the ability to run the company. So in order to create, he has to create a vacuum for the spoiled son to be able to become the ownership son. And that vacuum is a difficult vacuum, because in the moment of that vacuum, the son feels a void. He suddenly doesn't feel the goodies that he has from his father. But that vacuum is a moment where he suddenly is now responsible for himself. He is suddenly now empowered. So the difficulty and void and emptiness of that moment comes hand in hand with the ownership, responsibility, and empowerment that comes and is invested into that moment. And that's very much a key in how we explain in Chassidus the concept of tzimtzum, all the holy words that we use. This is what it is. So what happens? Pay attention to this mashal. So the father's kavanah, the father's intention in putting the son into this void is for the benefit of the son learning how to become an owner, of the son advancing through moments of uncertainty, through moments of looking through the trivial details of the company that he never paid attention to, but he's put now into the company and he has to go through it. In the Mashal, we explain that he's like an employee. He's simply given a 9-to-5 job like a regular employee. On the outside, he looks like a regular employee. You can't tell the difference on the outside. From the behavior patterns, from the looks, and from the expectations of the day-to-day behavior, he's exactly the same. And the father wants it that way, because the father needs him to understand that company to become an owner. You have to simply engage with these lowlifes, with the regular people, with the ordinary day-to-day. You need to engage there and be there in order to become an owner. And we explained how eventually the son can be trapped. He can lose his identity because he's going to be in such an environment. So the father has his moments that he pulls him out. And we gave an example then of the manager gives him a task to do of 14 days. And he gives it to him, and on day number 7, the father calls him and tells him to come home. So he said that's the child naturally at that moment feels a little bit lost. My manager told me we have 14 days to do this task, and if we're not going to do this, the whole thing, the company is going to fall apart. Here my father's calling me on day number 7 to come home. Where am I really? That becomes a moment really of identity. And we explained how really listening to the father in the 7th day is as important as listening to the manager on the 6 days, because really this is a moment where you're identifying yourself. So here's in the past we spoke about how that affects Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs, which is the 7th day, which is the moment we come to the Father, which is the moment we suddenly realize there are other parts of us, 2 legs to our identity. That's what we spoke about in the past. But this also affects the day-to-day life. We spoke more about the Torah mitzvahs. Now let's talk about the day-to-day life. When the son is in the company, in his day-to-day activities, here is where we'll see a difference between a son and a regular employee. Example given is Yaakov. The Rebbe says in the Sikha that Yaakov was a Ramai, right? He was tricked Yitzchak in the brachas. He put on the clothes of Esau in order to get the brachas.
Is that why he married Rachel?
But what's the idea? But what's the idea of Yaakov being a Ramai? The idea is that Yaakov's identity was the same Yaakov even under those clothes. And this is going to be an idea of B'chol Derechecha and Kol Maasecha. The day-to-day life, Yaakov was a savvy businessman. He was a savvy businessman, but he was a Yaakov. And we'll see how the identity behind the businessman defines a businessman. In order to explain this, I'm going to give two examples. This is where we're going to start today's discussion. There is a question that's asked. We're going to explain how an identity of a person, how people look at things, can the Gashmis change the way you see something. So there's a question that people ask. The Baal Shem Tov says that when you see negativity in someone, it's a reflection on yourself. Right? So let me ask you a simple question. It says in the Torah, when I see negativity, it's in order to reprimand the other person. So what's the Baal Shem Tov telling me that the reason is for myself? It's not true. The reason is to reprimand the other person. I'm not supposed to reprimand? What's the reason I'm seeing the negativity? Baal Shem Tov says the reason is for myself, so I should focus on myself. It's both. Is it for the other person or is it for me? The Rebbe explains something fascinating here. It says like this. And he explains it through the story of Chum. Shem, Chum, and Yafis. Explains like this. Shem, Chum, and Yafis are all children of Noach. Noach one night wasn't behaving the way he was supposed to. Noach was Ish Tzaddik, he was an amazing person. Ish Tzaddik, everybody talked about him in Shevach, he was an amazing person. But one night he wasn't behaving the way he's supposed to. Comes along Chum, and Chum sees Ervas Aviv, he sees the situation, and Chum comes running to his brothers, and they, Tzaddikim, Ervas Avim, Leiro, they went backwards and they covered him up. What's the big deal? What's the story really trying to say? So this is like this. Amazing story over here. Chum was an Erva himself. This is what he did every night. Chum, this was his lifestyle. He always heard his father was a tzaddik. That's what everybody said. He was a little bit uncomfortable with that. You know, he had a different lifestyle. One day he wakes up and he sees his father is actually like him. He was very excited. He was tremendously excited. He comes running to his brothers, Chevre, you thought Noach is tzaddik? Look, he's like me. He's a regular guy. Chum saw Erva because he is Erva. A shoemaker sees shoes. Chum comes running to his brothers and telling them, hey, Tati is just like us. Shem and Yefes says, oi, they didn't see Erva, they saw a problem. How can we fix this problem? Chum saw an extension of himself. Chum's mindset was Erva, so he saw Erva. You see what you are. Not the factual facts are the same, but it's how you perceive them. Chum's perception was a consequence of his mindset, of his behavior pattern, of his lifestyle. He sees negativity because he's a shtick negativity. Shem and Yefes didn't see negativity. They saw a problem to fix. Chum comes along the Baal Shem Tov and says, you can't fix problems. You're part of the problem. You see Erva, go to the mirror. Fix yourself. Because you can't fix problems when you are the problem. Shem and Yefes, they didn't see negativity. They saw a problem. Oh, you see problems, fix them. When you see problems, you can fix them. When you see negativity, it's a reflection of your own negativity. So here you see a fascinating thing. Begashmius, we find that our Re'iyah Gashmis, the things we encounter, are really a reflection of our lifestyle, of our mindset, of what we feel is important, we will see and encounter and come across. Why does one person see something one way and another person see something another way? Because that's how they think in their own head, in their own Dalet Amis, in their own lifestyle. So this is the Re'iyah Gashmis changes, not changes in the sense of you're seeing different colors, changes in the sense of seeing a different message. The mindset, the purpose of a person changes the Re'iyah Gashmis. And I'll say you the same thing also B'Negiah Shmiyah. Just like it's B'Negiah Re'iyah, it's also B'Negiah Shmiyah. I brought down this mashal once in the past, but it's Shayach here. And this is B'chol Derechecha. B'chol Derechecha is changing the mindset. When you change the mindset, you change the things you encounter. The way you encounter them is defined differently. The child who's a son, if he's going to encounter his work surroundings with the mindset of a child, it'll have a different meaning than the mindset of an employee. Here he can have a mindset of empowerment, and here he can have a victim mindset. Oh, what can I do? Here it's going to be a simcha mindset. Although he's encountering the same difficulties and the same moments that are challenging, but the mindset behind it affects how you perceive those challenging moments. So let's see how it's in Shmiyah, right? This is what we're trying to do. How the purpose, how the b'chol derachecha, how the l'shem filters into the ma'asecha and derachecha. How the l'shem, the mind, the idea, purpose, message can change and flow, and a person would feel differently begashmius when they encounter the same encounters. We all say it in English, it's all in the mind. We say that in English, right. It's all in the mind, right? So that's what Chassidus says, the same thing, it's all in the mind. It might be a different mind, but it's all in the mind. So the same thing is in Shmiyah. Where do we find this in Shmiyah? So example given, I gave the example of Yankel the Ganav many times. Remember the example of Yankel the Ganav?
Yeah.
So now he became Shmerel, so it's going to be Shmerel today. So, the Balkaida example. Remember the Balkaida example?
No.
The Balkaida example?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll tell you both. Because they both, when you hear it again, it just highlights it again. Many times we feel victim. We feel trapped. Naturally, because you hit a moment. And then when you open up how I'm not trapped, I can do something to myself and see the same thing in a different way. And when we see this begashmius, it helps us realize it's a real thing. It's not a cholim. It's a real thing, begashmius, that we do on a day-to-day basis. So the two examples in Shmiyah. The Rav comes in Shul, and a Yidala comes to the Yalmud, and Yidala says, Yankel is a Ganav. Right? We gave this example. Yankel is a Ganav. The Rav says, you call Yankel a Ganav, it's Meitzi Shemra. The next week you have to come back and show. And you have to, you have to clarify, Yankel is nicht a Ganav. Can't just come and show and say Yankel is a Ganav. Yankel's embarrassed. Yankel's good. It's not a nice thing. So he comes the next day in Shul, and he says, Yankel is nicht a Ganav. And he goes off the Yomut. He did exactly the words that Rav said. Al derech, the words are hollow. In Chassidus, we say words are a guf, and the kavana is the neshama. But we don't pay attention to those words. We don't pay attention to what Chassidus is saying. What it's saying is like this. In life, we don't hear words. We hear the tone and intention. And they actually define the words. I would even venture to say this is probably the frustration of politics. Because politics, by definition, is a separation of intention and words. And that's the problem that people have, the frustration in politics. They can't stand it. So even if they have a yokel coming up and being genuine, but if he's genuine, they're going to like him. So that's the frustration that people have in politics. Because it's a real thing. You don't hear words. You hear intention. So someone who's genuine, you're going to hear genuine. Someone's a nudnik, You hear nudnik. You don't want to hear nudnik. Who likes a nudnik? I don't mind a nudnik. So you can say the best thing, but if he's a nudnik, I don't want to hear it. Nudnik, go away. So the guy in shul who corrects the Balkaire, who's known as nudnik, you don't hear the correction. You hear nudnik. So you don't want to hear him. The guy in shul who corrects the Balkaire, and it's not just Balkaire, it's correcting Bechlal. Chum is going to come along and correct someone. We're going to tell him, yeah, please, you're a Chum, we know who you are. Shalom, take a hike, get away. But someone else, Shem and Yefes, they're gonna, same words, but the neshama is what you hear. You don't hear the guf. And the neshama defines the guf. The intention defines the words. So here we have two areas, Pasha Begashmias. That intention, kavana, in English, the why defines the what. The why defines the what. And that's L'Shem Shamayim. Chassidus explains that when a person lives their life and they encounter the ordinary encounters that we encounter, the why of a person defines the what's that they encounter in life. And that's why the Eibishter sent us down to this world, that we should have a why, so the what's that we encounter, the tachtoinim that we encounter, the ordinary day-to-day activities, washing laundry, exercising, eating, jumping, whatever it may be, those ordinary activities are coming as a consequence of a why of a son. The son who's working in that company, that's an amazing thing. Every minute he's training into becoming an owner. Every minute we're in this world, Kol Masecha Yu L'Shem Shamayim, every minute is part of how the why is translating itself into another what, and now those what's changed. You're defining the moments you encounter. We say Adam Harishan called Kol Nefesh, he called the names of all the animals. What does it mean calling a name? It means calling out their identity, calling out the why. We do the same thing. Any encounter, we are calling them b'shemus. Whatever shemus we have is what we call them. When I encounter something, the way I see it, the way I define it is I'm now defining that encounter. That's the avoid of a person. It's brought down. Bring it out another way. Another sikha that ever said like this. Eliezer, what's the lashon? Yafa sichasen shalabdi avos mitayrasen shalbanim. That the story of Eliezer, it's a fascinating thing. The Torah is so particular in its words. Why is the Torah so ma'idich with the story of Eliezer? Why? Eliezer is looking for a shidduch. Okay, I understand. Shidduch is important. It's not something to belittle. But two prakim, it's a whole thing. Comes along the Gemara, Yafa sichasan shalav the yavis. The sichasan, the negotiations of Eliezer and Lovin is so important. It's even more important than Tayrasin Shalbanim. Than the actual. What do you mean? What does that mean? Comes along Chassidus and explains, this is exactly what we're talking about. Eliezer came to Lavan. He's going to Lavan Harami. He's going to the ultimate moments of Tachtoinen. What was the first thing he said? Such a beautiful thing. Lavan, don't mess. Eved Avraham Anechi. You know who I am? I look like a negotiator. Eved Avraham Anechi. I'll tell you who I am. I am connected to Avram. Till Besul, yeah, and afterwards Besul, yeah. I am connected to Avram. I negotiate, but I negotiate like a Yid, like a Avraham. That is the most important moment of Tachlis Abriya. To be in Lavan's home, Besul's home, to be in Mokim Haramaus, and over there express Eved Avram, that's more important than Teiros and Shalbanim. Who are Banim? Banim are like Avis. Avis is Yitzchak. Let's take an example of Yitzchak. Yitzchak didn't get it. Yitzchak, it says, Yitzchak planted. He was in agriculture. He did very well. He was very rich because he had a lot of produce. So the Gemara says, Yitzchak Zayreya Dagon Chas v'Shalom. Yitzchak was in agriculture? Chas v'sholom. What do you mean chas v'sholom? He did very well. He was a
Where do we
wealthy
see
man.
that? Where, in Mitzrayim?
No, in the Torah it says that Yitzchak planted a lot of seeds and he grew a lot of produce and he sold it and he became very rich. He became very rich and he gave meiser. He was a very wealthy man from agriculture. Simply, he was a good businessman. In agriculture, not in Seicher, but in agriculture. That's what he did. So the Gemara says, Yitzchak Zerei Adogan, Chas v'Shalom. What do you mean Chas v'Shalom? The Torah says that he was Zerei Adogan. Explains Chassidus. What's Pshat? Pshat like this. Yitzchak woke up in the morning. Yitzchak said, hey, there's a mitzvah called meiser. I never did it before. How am I going to do it? Oh, I have to go into agriculture to do it. It's like a person going out and say, hey, I have to make a bracha. Oh, I'll eat ice cream. It doesn't work that way. Yitzchak didn't get what it means to live a normal life. He was like, he was in back door. It's like, that's how you look at agriculture? You've got to have a geschmack in it. I mean, making money is a life on its own. I have to give meiser, so I'll give meiser. No, but him was the other way around. I have to give meiser, I'm going to go into agriculture. That's kedusha. Ovis never had a tachtoinim. The Ovis never had a tachtin. Their whole tachtin was infused with seeing kedusha. They never saw. Eliezer got it. Eliezer knew what it means to negotiate. He came along and he went to Lavan and he said, Eved Avram. Ooh, that's a treasured moment. That's a moment the Eibishter says, Yafa sichos and shalav de yavis. That's called Masecha Yul L'Shem Shamayim. Masecha, you ordinary, regular people who get it. Who know what this world means. But you, in this world, committed yourself to a new why, to a new identity, and you infuse that and let that express itself within this world. Ooh, Meiredik, that's beautiful. Yafa sichos and shalav yavis. This is a moment that's treasured. Tachlis, we say yafa sho'achas, the tshuva, mikol chayil, the whole thing. This is a treasured moment. In simple English, cleaning the laundry of a yid is better miteiros and shalbanim. A Yiddish mameh who takes care of a Yiddish home, that's kol masecha yul l'shem shamayim. It's treasured more than teiros and shalbanim. We say it many times in Chassidus that the ordinary things, tachtoinim, but how you do it. The why is part of you. Chassidus says another word. To bring this out another way. Where is the why? The why is not the moment you encounter the business. The why is in the head at home. When you sit down, you say, hey, why? That's where the why is. Then you take that why with you to wherever you go. In Chassidus words, that's davening. The why is davening. Shas sloisa shas krova. The time of davening is the time of the real war. Why is that the real war? I'm in shul. No, because that's the time you're defining yourself. The time of the why. Who are you? The time you take during the day and say, hey, why? Why? And that moment you answer a why, that's what you carry with you to the encounters you encounter, and you're defining those encounters with that why. So the kol masechel, the ordinary encounters flow as a consequence of that moment of why you were call it davening, call it the moment of reflection. It says, there was a chassid that said, he davens after davening. You don't have to daven during davening. You can daven after davening also. Huh?
Can you daven before?
You can daven before davening, you can daven after davening. Davening is not a secluded moment. There's no time. There was never a script for davening.
Because sometimes you say you like in your heart you want to daven kavanah, and comes to the davening it's not, but your intentions are kavanah.
The intention is the why. The intention doesn't mean, oh, let me now think something. Intention means Cham's intention wasn't, oh, I'm now think this was how he thought. So there are moments when you think in order to become a mindset, which is how you think. But that's what we mean by intention. Kol ma'asecha is a consequence. When a person says this is this is why I do something. Mother says, I did everything for my child. He doesn't have to think, oh, it's l'shem my child. It's part of her that she does it for her child. L'shem matzah's mitzvah. It's not l'shem matzah's mitzvah, right? It's part of, this is why I'm doing it. So when a person has that within him, in whatever way, that's called kol masecha. That's what we carry with us into the day-to-day. Another area where we find this, just to bring this in a bunch of places. There's a mitzvah called bikurim. What's the mitzvah bikurim? Person makes money. Not like Yitzchak. Yitzchak never wanted to make money. He only wanted ma'aser. But a regular person, a normal person, who looks to make money, comes along the Torah and says, the first fruit you give to the kohen. What's pshat? What's the message behind the mitzvah? We say clearly, in order to awaken within the person that the masecha, your ordinary day-to-day, is not separated. Going back to the first point. The ordinary way we look at things is there's a separation. The Eibishter is holy. No. The Eibishter is in this moment. When you give the first fruits, you're showing, hey, this is part of my life. There's one flow. My business activities are all part of my l'shem, my mindset. My purpose is what we say in English. My reason why I do things. And I'm going to show it to you within why the first thing I do is I give bikurim. And the Lashon it shouldn't say koyach veitzim yadi, also lisa chayil hazeh. That's what we shouldn't say. What's the idea of koyach veitzim yadi? What does it mean, my own? My own means to say it's separated from you. It's not your thing, it's my thing. So essentially what we're saying over here is that kol ma'asecha is more important than a moment of Torah. Kol derachecha is a Yitzchak moment. Kol derachecha is a higher level. Kol derachecha is that there was never a moment when it was mine. It's all yours. That's not a normal fellow. That's a tzaddik kind of thing. That's take kaddish umuvdol. That's not what we aspire to. But kol masech is a normal person. Normal person who does his things. Let me bring us a Haydol Poil, and then we'll summarize. Haydol Poil is the Rebbe brings us out all the time. How the role of the Nashim Tzidkanias in a home, see the Welt looks at a shul as a Mokim Kaddish. And sometimes it creeps into our head, hey, I'm not in a Mokim Kaddish, I'm losing out. Right? Sometimes a person can feel Yom Kippur, they're home. Rosh Hashanah, they're home. So you feel like you're losing Kedusha. Comes along Chassidus and explains to a person, Punk Fakert. Say Lashon of Chassidus, Atzmos. The ultimate moment of spirituality is at that moment in the home. Yafasi Chasen Shalab the Yavas. In Charod, in the diapers. In the ordinary things. It's the other way around. The moment I feel I have to separate, so it's really kfira. It's really, so he's not there, he's there. No, there is the most important. That's yafas yichas and shalav the yavas. So really, the ultimate spirituality, the ultimate inyan ruchni, is in the mokim gashmi shebegashmi, if you define that gashmi with a different why. Which is what we do. Let me summarize this before we finish. So I start off with a few questions. Let's see how they answer. We start off with Kol Masecha Yilu Shem Shamayim. What does it mean, Kol Masecha L'Shem? What does it L'Shem mean? What does it mean, L'Shem Shamayim? What does it mean, B'chol Derechecha? Is it a stira between Tainug and this whole idea of B'chol Derechecha, the Eyo and Kol Masecha? Absolutely not. Punk Fakert. What do we see now? What we're saying is the ordinary you, the place where you enjoy yourself, the place of the day, dafke, if you could enjoy yourself in Gashmi, that's who we're talking to. We're not talking to Yitzchak. Yitzchak doesn't get it. He's totally out of it. He does not get it. No. The more you get it, the more holy you are. It's like a contradiction in itself, but that's what it says. The more we get it, because that makes it real. Real is when it's all over. The Lashon of Chassidus, Atzmos is in the Tachton Shebetachton. The Eibush, Something real is found in everything, specifically in the places where you least expect. If it's real, it's all over. If you're real in something, there's no exception. Once there's exception, it means you're not real. Oh, but this. Then they say, I'm healthy in between snacks. Some episode, once you have exceptions, then it's not really healthy. It's a hobby, maybe not even. It's not a lifestyle. So the idea of atzmus is real. What does it mean atzmus is real? That means it reflects itself dafke in the tachten. Dafke over there. The one who doesn't get it doesn't know how to do it. So that's kol masecho. Kol drechecha is taka yitzchok. That's a higher level. Then we explained how this plays out in Re'iyah and in Shmiyah. Once we understand how this plays out in Re'iyah and Shmiyah, the story of Chum, or in Shmiyah, in the idea of reprimanding someone, then we could understand really, as an extension, it extends itself in everything we encounter in life. That's Ashkacha Pratis. Every encounter that we encounter in life is for us to define that moment. Dafka Yid should define it. Dafka when a Yid encounters the ordinary encounters, we are defining that moment. Adam called out the name. What's a name? A name is a why. A name is an identity. We decide things when we encounter them. The encounters we have. Let's play this out in Koman Diyovad Rahman Latavavid and in Gamzul L'Toivo, which is the challenges of life. Let's see how this plays out in challenges, right? That's the letters that we have over here. So Rebbe says, if you look at the two stories that we all know, and then we'll see the letters inside. So everybody knows the two stories of Rabbi Kiva and Nochem Ish Gamza, right? Let's remind you, Rabbi Kiva's story was with the donkey and the candle, letav of it. It ended up being good. It led to a good outcome. Nochem Ish Gamza was it was a different outcome. What was it different? If the king would have gotten a chest of gold and silver, he lavdafka would have been so happy because he has a lot of gold and silver. But because he got the sand, oh, that's something amazing. So Gamzul L'Tev means there was never a moment of ra, of bad. It was even better than I thought. In the story of Rabbi Akiva, this donkey was still killed. There was still moments of uncertainty. You never took away those moments of uncertainty. You never took away the sat. But here, I'm saying, this was the most amazing thing that ever happened. You should not have had the gold. This was much better. Why? Maybe the camel doesn't have to be eaten for me not to see the robbers. It led to a good outcome because this could have stopped. Fine. It's deeper. Gamzul L'Teva is like B'chol Derechacha. Those are holy people, have Gamzul L'Teva. That they never even encounter a challenge, they never even feel that there was something bad over there, and they simply see it as wholesome good. That's a very high level. That's not a regular level of an ordinary person. That's like a Yitzchok kind of moment. They don't get it. They don't live in the world of challenges, of difficulties, of being in the trench, like they say, right? And they don't get it. They simply, everything leicht. That's a tzaddik. Tzaddik sees Gamzul L'Teva. Reb Zusha, Gamzul L'Teva. He doesn't see it. Tsar? Who's Tsar? Coming to me for Tsar, right? The famous story of Zusha. They come to him, and he's sitting in a home, and it's in Ganzen Tzubrachin and Tzukrachin, and they say, what's up? I don't know, why are you coming to me? That's a tzaddik. An ordinary person is like the story of Rabbi. It's not ordinary. This is already a level. But that's the aspiration that we have. Letav of it, at least we can see that it leads to something. Sometimes we can hope to see, we can try to see, but that's the aspiration. Let's see how the Rebbe ties the hashgacha pratis that we spoke about, which is purpose. In English, it's called purpose. The why, the mindset, the defining moment. That leads to simcha. That leads to dealing with the uncertain moments. That leads to dealing with moments of challenges. Let's see how the Rebbe touches this in a few letters. 3 letters. It's not an exceptional chiddush in these letters, but the 3 letters are just, putting it together, you'll find the many letters. It's not like these letters are uncommon. So the first letter, yeah,
On the right side?
left side. Go from left to right. Oh, should go from right to left, but I'm going to start from the left one. So I'm gonna just say it in English, but I'm translating it from the letter. So everybody writes to a person.
So you're starting from the top one or the bottom?
Where is your mental power? The mental power letter. Yeah? So there is writing to a person who's not feeling well. So the first thing the Rebbe writes to him, Aleph.
Is he not feeling well? You mean like depressed?
He's a chayla. Matzav bris.
Oh,
He's something ill. Not feeling.
Mental power, something.
You'll see why I said mental power. So everybody, the first thing is, I see that you're not really writing at length what's going on in your health situation. You used to send me faxes every day. And now you're not even writing at all. It's like you're almost writing nothing. And Rebbe tells him, you should know, the best is the middle road. I understand you don't want to write too much, but don't go to the other extreme by not writing at all. You should write, tell me what's going on. Don't try to be stingy with your words. Tell me, express it. That's the first point. Okay. Second point, he writes, I see your letters are in a language of pachat, of you're very, you're scaring yourself, and urgency. Where is the concept of mental power? Moyech shalat al halev. At least don't let your heart go loose. In other words, your heart is scaring yourself. You are scaring yourself. And you're seeing things not the way the Baal Shem Tov told us, which is simcha. What do you mean? The guy's not feeling well. What are you telling him about seeing things? He's not feeling well. The what is it saying? He is not feeling well. What do you want? He's upset. No. The Rebbe is upset at him. Not upset. The Rebbe is demanding from him something. He says, hello, relax. I understand that you're not feeling well. But why are you allowing the what to define the why? Why are you allowing circumstances to define you? Stand back a second. I understand. Think a second. Where is your mind? He's telling, but God, where is your mind? Where is the moment of reflection that we all have in any moment that we have in life? And I already wrote to one of people from Anash that there are two different psukim, there are two different rules of Torah. One is that we have to serve Hashem b'simcha, and the other one is b'chol derechecha de'eyu. That the simcha that we have should reflect itself in all the encounters that we encounter in life. And this is connected also to hashgacha pratis, because anything that we're doing is connected to our purpose. In simple English, to what we spoke about, once we realize we're not a simple employee in this world. We're not a non-Jew. We're a son. And every moment of our life, there's a design. The son in the company, the father is looking from behind to make sure he's going through his training properly. The father never let go for a moment of the son which is destined to take over the company. We are partners to the Yevishter in the creation of the world. We're not here to be employees. We're not here to work out the workforce kind of mentality. We're partners. We're owners. A Yid is a different person b'mohusay. So there's no moment that he let go of you. Once you once you recognize there's a kavanah means purpose. It's like when you bump into someone in the street, you say, hey, why did I bump into you? It's an accident, right? But the Eibishter has no accidents. It was by design. I decided to meet you. Oh, so what's the reason why you decided to meet me? Once we realize everything has a decision, there's a reason. The word purpose helps alleviate pain. People feel at pain when they're alone, when they're purposeless. Pain is an extension from the mind feeling purposeless. Purpose leads to happiness, satisfaction. Loneliness leads to feeling sad. And loneliness is accident. I'm an accident. I'm just mistake. It shouldn't have happened. Oh, accident shouldn't have happened leads to depression, leads to feeling. It's in feeling what's in the mind. So the more the mind has purpose, the more the heart has gratefulness. Not gratefulness, at least not feeling lost.
Why can't you say gratefulness?
That's already a darga. At least not feeling lost. To feel grateful is a darga, but at least not feeling lost. The child knows that his father put him in the company to be an owner. So there's going to be something that the moments and the encounters he has are in that direction because the father can change it. Why did the father do it? There's got to be a purpose. Let's see by the letters. So even if you look, let's see all three letters and then we'll see. So even if you look at first glance at your health, and even when you're writing it, write it in that tone. Write it in other words, first the Rebbe tells him, write more often. Then the Rebbe tells him how to write. Write it with that tone. Don't write to me as if I'm lost. Write to me with the tone. At least let me hear that your heart is not, the what is not taking it over. Write to me with a tone of some kind of recognition, of hope. Not, in English they say, don't play victim. Right? Don't play victim. Okay, that's the first letter. Second letter.
It is very interesting what he writes. Right. This is amazing.
Well, what say that?
That even your
Gloominess.
in other words, the calculations you have now, quote unquote, that are causing you to feel lonely, you can change those calculations to feel purpose, to feel like there's something to you. Don't feel like there's nothing. I'm out, I'm gone, I'm void. That don't have. Desperation. Take away the desperation. A problem, yeah. A challenge, yeah. But not desperation.
So what's the yodu?
Even, in other words, you can change it. It's going to agree. It's going to agree. It's going to be moida. It's going to agree. In other words, you can bring yourself to agree, right? When a person is desperate, it's moda shcheda. Moda shcheda means that you just see things black.
You could be also that you don't understand it.
No, he's gonna in the next. אבל מודים זה הודעה, שהם מכירים שיש בזה אמת.
כן, אז הוא מרגיש מראה שחורה, הוא לא יכול להגיד שזה לא קיים.
He can change the Mara Shcheda. We'll see in a second. The third letter is he's gonna give us a little bit tip of how you can talk to the Mara Shcheda.
על פי פסק ברזל, אני מתפלל בעד חברו. חברו is the מראה שחורה.
No, so there's a the Chazal say that when a person davens for someone else, Hashem answers him first. So therefore, he's giving him a tip that the advice that when you're mispal for your friend, that you should answer you first. So therefore, that should help you for your briyas. Let me get through all three because the third one also talks about the Mara Shcheda and gives you a tip how to talk to the Mara Shcheda. It gives him like a little bit of a calculation. Yeah. Mara Shcheda is gloominess, seeing things black, feeling victim, feeling desperate, not seeing any light in the end of the tunnel.
That can happen sometimes.
Definitely.
I'm saying no, I just got through with antibiotics and I was like really.
I just got through with the flu and I was feeling like.
Is it you?
If you turn it
Mara Shcheda can happen, but what he's saying is that Mara Shcheda has no place by a person. Logically, a challenge is okay. Mara Shcheda doesn't mean that you have a challenge. Mara Shcheda means that you feel desperate and there's no hope. And that's a problem. That's an illness. That's not a normal thing. It's normal to feel a challenge. And you're always gonna feel a challenge. But when you take that challenge and turn it into Mara Shcheda, that's sick. That you can change it. We can logically change it. Okay.
It works.
Let's see the second.
Gallbladder in the liver, you start smiling.
Gallbladder.
Mara Shcheda is a decision. You know what? I'll say it this way. Mara Shcheda is essentially a decision. It's a decision.
Decision to be sad or to
it's a decision to be depressed. People who are depressed.
Perspective. He's talking about just the perspective of it.
But part of it is.
I'm not talking about the regular Mara Shcheda. The regular Mara Shcheda that some people see the glass empty and the glass full, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, right, some people are more pessimistic, some people are more optimistic. Some people see things gloomy, some people see things happy, right? I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the sense of Mara Shcheda over here in the sense of feeling doomed. there is a moment of decision for that. In other words, I can make a decision and reverse that. That's not something where a person should say, "Oh, that's just my genetic composition," and there are genetic components that can lean in that direction. Maybe there's a choila mamish, but in a normal case, there's also the Rambam talks about genetic compositions. Some people spend more. Some people save. Some people are more
Worry bugs.
social. Some people are less, more reserved. These are all you have a tendency to lean in a certain direction. Everybody's born, the Rambam writes, everybody's born that they can have an atiyah. They lean in a certain direction. That doesn't mean that's how you are. You can reverse. You can balance it. It's not like, oh, so that's it. I'm doomed. This is how I'm going to be. I'm always going to be a stingy whatever. No, I'm always going to be a guy who doesn't know how to save. No, there's a derech mitzvah, like he wrote in the first thing. You can either write. Some people don't know how to write, right? He was writing a letter a day to the Rebbe. The Rebbe's like, the Rebbe was happy he didn't do that. He told him, the derech mitzvah. I'm happy you stop with everyday letters. My mailbox is full enough, but at least don't go to the other extreme and don't write to me at all. So there's a derech mitzvah, right? So there's tendency doesn't mean I'm doomed. Yeah. Okay, let's see the second letter. So the second letter, Rebbe writes, "Ma'ashari." Okay, I'm acknowledging the fact that I got your letter, and of course I don't have to remind you that there's no room for a person to feel down. Not down, to feel very down, to feel lost. Yipol leiv ha'adam. I feel like my heart is fell down. It's English, say my heart fell, right? So from the difficulties that you encounter throughout the time that you're meant to do your purpose that you were created for. And that is like this. This is one of the tactics of the Yetzer Hara. What do you mean? That's my nature. I feel down. It's a tactic of the Yetzer Hara. I feel down. I have a difficulty that I encountered. Why are you telling me this is self-inflicted? Yetzer Hara means it's self-inflicted. Yetzer Hara means it's not really me, and it's self-inflicted. What do you mean? That's what I feel. I feel very down. I came across a challenge. No. Don't convince yourself this is a natural consequence of the challenge you came across. Challenges we come across is the what? I got it. Yes, you came across the challenge. Yes, you hit a moment of difficulty. But don't convince yourself it's a natural consequence for you to feel so down as yipol leiv ha'adam. No. That's tachbulus ha'yetzer. The whole idea of the Yetzer Hara is to win you over in these moments. You feel now that when a person is down, they have no control. When you have no control, then I can get you to do what I want. That's called someone manipulating you, right? When they manipulate you, so they try to get you very down, and then you're isolated, and then you're vulnerable, and I can do whatever I want to you. That's what the Yetzer Hara does. He's a smart guy. That's what he does. And Seif Kol Seif, all these moments of uncertainty and halamis, you'll see, eventually, he brings down, eventually it should be, you should see them turn over. You should see the good that comes out of it. Komadi of the Rahmana, and then eventually Gamzul Teva, which is already a higher darga. Okay, the third letter. So here he talks about, again, this is a decision we make. There's a process that I have in the what's that I encounter, how I can define it. What's don't define me. What's meaning to say encounters, the things that I come across. I can define the things that I encounter. It's not going to take away the difficulty. It's not going to take away the problem. It'll minimize the pain. It'll put it in perspective. It'll allow me to see more than a moment. At the end of the day, it's going to come from purpose. It's going to come from design. It's going to come from, there has to be something in it for me. Let's see how that plays out. One more letter. So the Rebbe writes over here like this.
I just have a question about the two levels. Rahman al-Tavavid, and you said Nefim Tov, Yorak opened the whole ma. So there's two. Could you just
the normal.
Which one's higher?
The highest level is like Nochem Ish Gamzu. There was absolutely no bad in the encounters that I encounter. It's just simply toiv. I never saw bad. That's a very high level. That's not something we can.
Okay, and Rabbi Kiva's.
That was Nochem Ish Gamzu. Rabbi Kiva moments where we miss a plane and you see it was good. I still was very frustrated when I missed a plane. We see that every time. I mean, people see it. And the more you're in life, the more you see that everything I thought was good was good. It doesn't mean I wasn't frustrated in that moment. It doesn't take away the frustration that I had. I had fever in that moment. I was very upset. And if you would have felt my heartbeat, it was abnormal. But in the end of the day, a good thing came out of it. So it doesn't take Nachum. There was never a bad moment. That's a different level. It's a tzaddik level. You see only kedusha. That's a yitzchak level. That's people we call not normal, right? No, that's what we call not normal. That's not normal.
They're not so many.
Holy people. Ah. Most people who encounter a negative, chas v'sholom, a person is put in jail. Nachum Ish Gamzl was put in jail, right? Most people, they're not happy when they're in jail, and it's not, l'tav avid, fine. L'tav avid is also high darga. To say that it was never it, that's a very high level. It was never even a bad. That's a, yeah.
So, I'm sorry. Does it have to do with how you feel about, like, inside your body if everything's healthy? Because you get negative when things are not healthy. So what does it have to do with physicality too? Physicality?
A person's not feeling well, they feel negative. Yeah. They feel upset.
It throws everything off balance.
They feel upset, but he's saying at least don't feel desperate. Don't feel lonely. I'm going to put it in English. Don't feel lonely. Don't feel that you're hopeless. A different place that Rebbe, was it over here? Even while you're sick, there's things when you. We spoke about this last time.
This really helped me when I had the flu. There's a comment that I left with. It was really incredible. Can I share?
You can share.
We were talking about we were talking about Amuna and Chalabakim and Chalav Yisrael, and I said that when I was premature, I had to have Chalabakim, and I feel bad. Maybe it affected my Amuna, whatever, but it's not really something that I really had a choice over. So Rabbi Wolf said that the same Hashem who wants you, like with Chilul Shabbos, right? If I'm
listening.
Yeah. You were saying the same Hashem that wants you to have Chalav Yisrael at that moment wanted you to have that Chalabakim because it was there to sustain your life.
Right.
So when I was
in the sense of keeping you alive.
Right. Exactly. So when I was home with the flu, I was like really having a difficult time with it, and I said, I know it's there. It's like there for me to appreciate, and there's something, I don't know what it is, but the same Hashem who wants me to be out and running now wants me to be home. And I kept on saying it to myself, and I was like, that at least it took the edge off.
That's okay.
Okay, let's see one more letter, and then let's see. So you bring out how in every moment, no matter what it is, there's a purpose. Let's see one more letter, and let's see how the Rebbe talks about this person's illness also. So the Rebbe writes an answer to your letter, and I got an idea through the phone. I guess someone called. It's a pella by me. It's a wonder by me that even though you've seen in your personal life, and of course in the lives of others, Niflois of Hashem, you saw wow moments. You've seen wow moments. Niflois is not a nes. Pella is a wow. Wow. Wow doesn't mean it's a nes. It just, I didn't expect it. And temporarily, even when you thought there was no way out of your situation, you saw that the situation change in a good way. To the extent that you look back and you were like, hey, why was I even upset? So he says, it's known, the piskim of a chacham, that the avar malamed ala asad, you should learn from your past. Let those moments that you look back at the moments when you were upset, and now you're looking back and you say, why was I even upset? Those moments should teach you and help you cope with the other moments that you encounter. Over Mele, you should be strong in your bitachon. That's bitachon. Bitachon is holding on to purpose in moments of void. That's what bitachon is.
Could you repeat that sentence?
Uh-huh.
Could you repeat that sentence?
I'll say it again.
It was very confusing.
I'm sorry. Say it again. So it's a wonder to me that even though you have seen in your personal life and in the life of others moments of wonder. What's a wonder? That even though temporarily you saw yourself in a situation where you didn't see any way out of it, but you saw that situation change to the good, to the extent that you look back and you're like, hey, why was I even upset? And you were in a Mara Shchera then. It was like a moment that you felt, a moment that you feel you have no end is Mara Shchera. A moment where you feel there's no light to the end of the tunnel, that's a good definition of Mara Shchera. Oh, but you're looking back and you're saying, why was I even so upset? I see something good came out of it. Those moments should help you cope with future similar moments in the sense of infusing purpose. That's what he calls that bitachon. That's bitachon. Kolman the Avad Rachman Latab of it, meaning to say there'll be something good that comes out of it. You see, here he's not looking back and saying I wasn't ever in Tsar. He was in Tsar, but he sees it led to something good. That's a case that we can relate to. Meshech Hazman, you should be zoichet a higher darga of Gamzul Utoiva, but that's like a bracha. That's like, and then he brings out the story of the two stories that we saw before, and Mechakal B'Suris Tevis. So what do you see over here? Here he's giving you, in a sense, a little bit of a tip. He didn't get into a whole calculation, and a different time we'll go into calculation. What it means, how a person, that writes in a lot of places, and Chassidus is brought down many times, how the more we go through life, the more we can see a Baal Asik versus a Yeshiv oil. A businessman sees more hashkacha pratis than a person who learns Torah. The more we're in life, the more we see how the expected outcomes are not so expected, and the unexpected could sometimes become expected. We see that. Unexpected things can happen, and expected things don't happen. And even though it was supposed to happen, it didn't happen. And something that wasn't supposed to can happen. So the more we see that, it says the Eibishter created the world specifically in that way, that every strategy can never be guaranteed. Even in English, we say only tax and death is guaranteed. That's what we say in English, right? And the Eibishter made the world that way. Because if things were guaranteed, we would never have bitachon. We would have a different guarantee. But because we never have a guarantee, it allows us to see a different guarantee. Because we don't have a guarantee in Teva, that allows a crack in Teva. The Eibishter says he made Sofin, he made one direction unfinished. In other words, he never allowed the concept of foolproof. He never allowed that to happen. Because he wanted us to Al Pi Seichel be able to develop that. And they say even within business, two kinds of businessmen. One businessman, you go into their office, you see this? Experienced businessman. So specifically in deals, right? A person who makes deals, who's going out. So deals means something comes to you and you expect, this looks good, it's going to happen. This looks, it might not happen. So a young businessman in the office sees it makes sense, it's going to happen. He's already counting his money to the bank before it happens. The old one says, relax, relax. I've seen many deals that were supposed to happen, but they never happen. Wait till this goes to the bank. And he's praying as he's going to the bank that it should actually happen. The bank shouldn't pull the plug on the deal. The more you're experienced, the more you can realize that even the things that are supposed to happen don't necessarily happen. So that helps. That's bitachon. Bitachon happens through Teva, which is another discussion in itself. So let's just do the sakim so I can finish on time this time. Basically on time. So what do we learn over here? We had a discussion on L'Shem Shamayim. We had a discussion on Bechol Derechecha. We summarized the two as in purpose, as in defining moments. That leads to, we gave examples of Shmiya, of Re'iyah. We showed how that applies by Yaakov and Esav. We then explained how the Eibishter treasures dafke the moments of Kol Maasecha versus Bechol Derechecha. Dafke the moments of an ordinary person, not a Yitzchak, not a Meiser looking to do mitzvahs and you find it in the world. No, a person who's a normal person who enjoys life. But you're eating L'Shem Shema, you have a different purpose to yourself. That's what we explained. Then we finished and explaining how this flows into challenges. Challenges of life are part of life. They're part of how we perceive ourselves. If the child sitting in the bench over there in the company feels that he's a regular employee and he's under the ownership of the manager, he can feel lonely. He can feel lost. Yeah. the moments that we recognize within the ordinary, that helps us look at things a little bit differently. To crack the Mora Shchoida, not to crack the difficulty, but to crack the Mora Shchoida. And the Mora Shchoida is what sucks out hope. Once there's hope, a person can be positive, a person can see a future, a person can work through the moments. The only time you can't work through moments is Mora Shchoida. Mora Shchoida is a vacuum that sucks out any hope, sucks out positivity. And the moment you have positivity is the moments of Leichter, Simche. That's why I said, Ibdu Shesem Simcha. They used to call Chassidim Freiliche. That's what they used to call them, right? Because the Chassidim, where the Baal Shem Tov was tzivul, was Ibdu Hashem Simcha. I guess they were very Mora Shchoida before the Chassidim came along. I don't know. That we finished, and
They were doing so many sigufim.
they were looking at the Eibishter as a dictator, as a person who manipulates you. I have no choice. Chassidus looks at the Eibishter as a doctor. The Rebbe says in many we saw that last time. A doctor gives you nutrients based on what's good for you. It's a different. It's for me. It's not against me. It's for me. It's a different way of looking at the interest. It's a relationship, not a servitude. They say a poetic oil, someone who wants to let go, is because every minute you're taking me away. But if it's in the mind, I have nothing to let go. That's how I think. Chassidus talked to the mind. Until Chassidus was only action. Right? The mitzvahs was an action, was an act. Chassidus called it a connection. Everything runs around the same line. It wasn't Ivdus Hashem beraglayim, it was besimcha. Simcha is the mind. They say two people can sit in traffic. One person's smiling and one person is hugging and yelling and jumping. What's the nafkamina? If you're going to be thinking about the traffic the whole time, and you're going to be. Well, the person is thinking about something else. His mind goes somewhere. He's busy. He's going to find something else. So suddenly the whole thing doesn't make a difference to him. Every encounter a person encounters is all in the mind. All in the mind. The rough encounters. They say that a person they say Americans are known for their quest of happiness? What's the word? Pursuit of happiness, right? But Americans are very depressed. Americans, the most money is made by new therapists. Make a lot of money in America. Why? What's pshat?
Antidepressants.
Drug
I like to see that I'm looking at the optimistic side. There are lots of happy Americans. Chabad, all very happy. Okay, but we're not talking about Chabad. We're talking about the world, the Welt. But we're talking about us. I'm saying it's just they don't have a realistic view of life. That's the problem. It gets very depressing.
Why is it a normal thing to have a therapist?
You say in America?
Yeah.
Maybe also in Europe.
Today Europe is like America. America is basically the West. The West. Asians, the Eastern culture. I don't know, ich bin nicht kein Maven, but I would assume Eastern culture doesn't have it as much. I would assume.
There's a lot of suicide.
Ich weiß nicht, I don't know, but I'm talking about, when I say America, I mean to say the Western culture. Why is it normal to have a therapist? Why? Why is it so normal?
Some people, it's a matter of status. If you have money, you have a therapist.
But why? But why? I have a nice car I got, but why a therapist?
Why not?
Because they feel.
Therapist is a mind doctor.
They feel
You have no mind? Why do you need a therapist?
incapable of
I mean the mind, like a...
In the mind, sometimes they give you clarity. It's not like a negative thing to go to. And I mean, of course, it has to be aligned with Chassidus and Torah, but sometimes it's a talent that people are like, they understand certain things, they understand the way a person works.
So why can't you have a good friend that coaches you? In the olden days, there was a in the Pirkei Avos, Knei lecha chaver and aseh lecha rav. Right? So you had a coach, a rav, a normal person as a rav, and a chaver, a good chaver. Why don't people have Knei lecha chaver today?
You know, I,
Mashpia is
no,
like,
first
you
of all,
know.
people
No.
do have friends and people have a mashpia. Mashpia could guide you in your spiritual life. Now, sometimes you'll be helping you've been balancing your spiritual and physical life, you know, like not always gonna help you every.
So tell me if I'm wrong. But I would venture to say that today people have a lot of acquaintances, but very few friends.
So,
True.
And
what's the
that's
value?
and that's
Depends,
part
like,
so and that's part of the
even someone who
culture.
has like good friends, like you know,
What's a good
sometimes
friend?
they're-
A good friend is someone who you go to their chasana, or a good friend is someone that you can share with them a struggle and they don't look down at you.
No, even a good friend that you can share struggles with and they don't look down at you and you could help each other, but you help each other as a friend. You're both like subjective. Like you see it.
Why? Knei L'Chacham is the most amazing
Because
thing.
a friend is on your level. Like you see something, you see things, you could help each other to a certain degree, but sometimes the therapist like sees it.
So that's a Seilach HaRav. That's what's the Rav is for. Rav is for someone who's not on your level.
Well, not
But
so
even,
does a Rav know about like the physical and like psychological, emotional.
I'm not, oh,
well-being
fine,
of
I'm
the
not taking
person.
away.
Like, I think they're both necessary. I think if you need it, you need it. It's not like you have to be dependent on a therapist your whole life, but like sometimes they give you clarity for things that a mishpia can't.
Sometimes
You have to have a major problem.
My
with
question
the
was,
therapist, just
but
like-
why is it American culture? It's more lately, no? It's like
I think
a
it's
trend lately.
People are becoming healthier now. They're like dealing with problems
I
that
think so.
I think back in the day people weren't they weren't in that state of mind that they're able to.
They were just struggling to make
the
the extra dollar, to make the livelihood. They didn't.
Like it's Mashiach times that you can live a happy life and make the best of your life. You know,
They're
it's like-
happier?
of course, people are happier when you can deal with problems. I think like back in the day, like people didn't have time. They weren't able to. Like they weren't in that state that they were able to like deal with problems and actually fix them. Like they're always, you know, like.
I don't know, for some reason, the way it comes across to me is that the mind problem is values. What's a mind? Mind is values. Mind is aspirations. A mind is what's important to me. So because we have no values in American society, everything is obsolete. Nothing is absolute, right? That's what we live in. Anything obsolete means it's old-fashioned. Anything, right? Today, everything is like stoim and amoira. Everything is like legal. It's like there's no there's no. So that confuses people, because we're not supposed to be that way. So the more you confuse people, the more they look for help. But the problem is that they're not looking in the right direction. So they're going to constantly go to a therapist who's going to tell them, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, that's okay.
If you're looking for that kind of therapist, if you want a therapist.
But I'm talking about the goy. I'm talking about the Western world.
Right, I'm talking about.
I'm not talking about it. Oh, for us, no. I'm talking about the Western world. What's at the side of it, and it seeps into us too. Certain things can seep into us too. But as a clown, the Western world, I think that's why people are going to therapists
How
more.
do you see it seep into us?
Well, you remember when they had the whole big thing with the meditations in New Jersey, where a lot of people went there to meditate, and then they had a community get together, and the old Khan spoke, and they wrote Rabbi Shochat this big.
Right. The big against this whole thing.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called.
Well, some people were helped, but it was temporary fixes, the meditations.
No, but you know what? My son's. I was speaking to my son. He was saying, "Ma, some people who are really chronic needed that, and it helped them. But he says for the average normal like person, they shouldn't have to need that."
Yeah.
Is that
Today.
am I wrong or right?
1 second. Yeah.
Today, people don't look at life the way it used to be looked at. I've lived a long time.
Many more years.
And I've seen the changes that have happened. The tools that we as children and we as a community, and I'm talking about non-frum, excuse me, the culture of the United States did not give tools to the children to be able to use them, like we're saying in Hasidus, to be able to say, I have a purpose, I have and I have all the tools I need with help from the Rabbanim, help from Torah, help from those around me. They didn't get that. They don't have it, so they seek it outside. So they look to drugs and liquor and all kinds of other meditations and different things in order to be able to think that they can cope.
There'll be emotional,
I'm a therapist.
Disclosure.
I know. I've seen these children grow up and not grow up.
does it have to do with the parents, like?
It's not only the parents.
Nature nurture.
It's not the parents, it's the community. It's whether, it doesn't matter if it's a single parent or a parent.
Wait, what do you mean by community?
Anything
Oh, in
like
the
that.
secular world, you're talking about the secular?
Of course.
Right, so here you have a lot of support, this is so much.
Here, you have a lot of support that's available, but unfortunately, there are a lot of people who don't take advantage
In our
of it.
in our community, after we can say something else. You know, questions are important. Questions are important. Chassidus is based on idea, on questions. And questions makes it real. If you look to make it real. So, really, I mean, in Chassidish shtetl, in the olden days, a child has to, I mean, it was always, it could be either way. There could be also a malamed that tells him, when you're going to get old, you're going to understand, just because he doesn't know, and that was a very bad thing to say. But today, it's not a question of if you have a question, it's a question of if you're allowing it to come out. That's what I'm saying. The mind is questions. The mind is questions. You can't, today there's no walls. You know, you can live in a ghetto, so you don't know about something else. Today you know everything. Don't think a 12-year-old doesn't know everything. He knows everything. So are you helping him know it the right way? The what and the why. If you don't, the Rebbe said, why is there chinuch to Bnei Yisrael of Chassidus, of Gemara? Why? Because it's not a question of knowledge is available. So why not teach the right way? The same thing today applies to children and to younger children and to all areas. If you're not going to give them values, and I'm referring to not just value, right? Then they're going to get it somewhere else. So Western culture seeps into us too. It's not like we're like the ghetto where we have today it's they call technology. Technology is all over and everywhere. So everyone knows everything. And so then there's confusion. And by us it plays out differently. I'm not going there.